Before we start this week's podcast, we'd like to encourage our listeners to consider donating to the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. It's a nonprofit organization that fights for racial justice. Through litigation, advocacy, and public education, they seek structural changes to expand democracy, eliminate disparities, and achieve racial justice in a society that fulfills the promise of equality for all Americans. Visit www.naacpldf.org to donate to an incredibly important cause. With that, back to you, Dustin, to start the show.
All right. Thanks, Jake. Welcome back to another episode of the Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are having another great episode tonight, another fun episode. This one is a fun one. It's mock draft time. We, Jake and I, which I should introduce my co-host, Jake Trowbridge. How are you doing, sir?
I'm here, man. I'm here and I'm doing it. We're doing it.
We are. So, as I was going to say, Jake and I are in a home league together, and we have our draft coming up next weekend, Labor Day. So this is the perfect time to do a mock draft, in my eyes, since it'll kind of be a little bit of prep for our home league here, and you guys can take a peek behind the curtain of our thoughts and our drafting strategies. I know we've talked about it throughout the off season here, and now you're going to see us put some of these strategies actually into practice and see how we would actually draft a team. And we are going to take this very seriously. We're not going to go off on some crazy draft strategy, taking, say a kicker in the third round or something, like we're going to draft like we're actually drafting for our real league. So before we get into that, first things first, what are we drinking? Jacob.
Whew. I'm drinking a BrewDog Hazy Jane. You can't see that. I don't know why I'm holding it up that way. Listeners, you could never see it to begin with, but our YouTube viewers couldn't see it either. It's a BrewDog Hazy Jane New England style IPA.
Nice. And how is this beer?
It's great. It's like that cloudy, juicy, it's right in the name really with the haziness, but it's delightful. Yeah.
Nice.
How about you?
Well, what would you rank this first?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
For Untapped.
I forgot the ranking for our Untapped beer rating app. I'm going to give this, it's great. It's one that I wouldn't like crush a ton throughout the day, and that's what I look for this style. So I'll give it a 3.5.
3.5 on the books. So yes, for all of you following along here, we are on Untapped. It is a beer ranking program out on the interwebs, and there's an app for it on your phone. You can find us there at drinking_fantasy if you want to follow along with us and see the beers that we drink on the podcast every single week. I am drinking, and this makes me so happy. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be the first of many for like the next 2 months here on the podcast. I am drinking an Oktoberfest from Great Lakes Brewing Company. It's Oktoberfest season, one of my favorite seasons of the year. I love Oktoberfest beer, one of my favorite styles. So I'm very happy that I'm drinking this. I saw it at the store the other day, my local liquor store, and I was like, Oktoberfest season's here. Oh.
You got very excited. I think
I got very excited
for that than anything I've seen in recent memory. Now, I will say there's a line between us here because I also love Oktoberfest, but I have a hard, fast rule where I don't indulge in Oktoberfest until September rolls around. I don't feel right doing it during the summer months.
I know, but it's so close at this point. It's the 27th of August today.
You can taste it, literally.
Literally, we're so close. I have no issues drinking one this close before September.
All right. So what would you rate this particular Oktoberfest?
I gave it a 3.75.
All right. Where does that fall in the realm of Oktoberfest for you? Like, would this make it into a regular rotation?
Oh, for sure. It's a very easy drinking beer. I really like pretty much anything from Great Lakes. They don't do bad beer, in my opinion. It would make it into my regular rotation easily. It's kind of middle of the road, but like I said, easy drinker. Nothing real negative to say about it. I just love it.
Would it be your first pick off the board in a beer mock draft right now?
Are there other Oktoberfests in this mock draft?
Sure, it could be whatever you want in there. Let's say it's only Oktoberfest in this mock draft.
Well, I need to know the other Oktoberfests. I mean,
All of them. Any of them.
Just all of them.
Any Oktoberfest that's on the market and available to you for purchase. Like, I'm a big fan of Capital Brewing's Oktoberfest.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really enjoy that. That's a local one here in Wisconsin. I'm a big fan. I feel like the Midwest in general has to be the Oktoberfest capital of the U.S.
Well, we got big German heritage here in Wisconsin, so that makes sense. I'm a big fan of Staghorn from New Glarus, also a local brewery.
Yep.
Their Oktoberfest is delicious. I don't know. It's like choosing between your children. Like, how do you just have a favorite? They're all wonderful in their own special way.
Speaking of Staghorn, I have to call attention to this. And listeners, I'm sad that you can't see this. So always a reminder to check us out live on YouTube so that you can get some of this action. In the background that Dustin has over his green screen, sorry to ruin the movie magic there, but he is basically sitting at a Wisconsin tavern. It looks ready for a fish
You don't
fry.
know what this is?
No. Wait, now I feel like an asshole for even bringing it
You
up.
should. You should. I'm disappointed you don't know what show this is from.
I got nothing, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is from a delightful show. One of my more favorite shows out there, Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
This is
I'm
The
not a big
Office.
Schitt's Creek guy.
See, you got to get into it. It is a great show. Great show. All the listeners out there, if you haven't started watching Schitt's Creek, they're all on Netflix right now. Go ahead, watch them. All 5 seasons. The 6th season was just released, so it's not on there yet. But great show, really funny. Check it out.
Are you angling for a sponsorship deal with Netflix right now? Is that what's happening?
I wish. I would have no problems with that.
Anyways, in the background, there's a picture. It's got some fucking antlers on it. That was the whole point I even brought it up. Anyway,
Sorry to ruin it.
it's all right. But we are ready, I think, on that note, to get into our...
Drunk Trade of the Week.
Absolutely. So this one, to be fair, I don't recall if we've had this submission previously. It feels like maybe we did, but sometimes, I drink a lot, and so I don't know for sure. I couldn't track it down in a recent show sheet. So
At least you're on brand.
you tell me, Dustin. But this one comes from @thesportsparlay on Twitter, who says, I traded Odell Beckham in a keeper league when he was a rookie for Terrence Williams and a 3rd-round pick the following year. I still get chirped about it to this day.
As you should.
The chirping is what made it like a deja vu moment, was that chirping.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard anybody else use that, so whatever. Even if this is a repeat, let's pretend like this is a freshie and we've never encountered this before, because I don't remember what the hell I would have said anyhow.
Well, I hope I'm saying the same thing that I said then, that, this is a terrible trade. Giving up Odell in a keeper league for Terrence Williams and a 3rd. So Odell's, 5 years in the league? 6 now?
I think this is his 6th year, right?
So this is probably the 2014 class?
He started 2014.
Yeah.
And just for fun, I wanted to pull up what Terrence Williams' stats were in 2014, because that will make all the difference here, clearly. And he had 37 receptions for 621 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like a reasonable season.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But not worth trading Odell Beckham for, even with his injuries and whatnot. Yeah,
and I know his rookie season, he started off with that hamstring injury where he was out like the first 4 games or so. But man, did he just come on like a wrecking ball the second half of that season once he was healthy. Oh man, did he light the league on fire. And then obviously we know what he's done since then.
He still put up 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns in that rookie season where he dealt with that hamstring. So there you go.
Yeah, crazy. That you were most definitely very drunk.
It's bad.
When he made that trade. It was bad.
I don't know what you want us to say. It's bad. I purposely picked this one out because look, we've got a lot to do here with this mock draft. We got to get into some meat. I didn't want to spend too much time belaboring this. It's bad.
It is. I think, and the fact that he still gets chirped about it to this day, you should.
Yeah,
That's a bad trade.
yeah, that stays with you. That lingers. It's like syphilis. It doesn't just go away.
Ooh, I wouldn't know about that, Jake.
Oh, please.
All right, so should we start our mock draft here?
Let's do it. So, do you want to tell the folks what style of mock draft we're doing here?
This is a 12-team PPR draft. I just have it set up for a 5-minute timer just so we can sit and chat about our picks or upcoming picks if we want to. We're doing just a regular snake draft. It's 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, 2 flex positions, kicker, defense, and 6 bench positions. And I am going to randomize the draft order right now, live on air.
Excellent.
Let me get the share screen up here. So, Jake, you can see what's going on, and folks at home, you can follow along as well.
That's right. We want everybody involved. No shenanigans here.
That's right.
Full transparency.
Full transparency. That's what we're about. So here we go. I'm going to hit the randomize teams button. And this is making for great podcasting. All right. So looks like Jake is at 10 and I am at 12.
So there are going to be some good sniping opportunities in this draft then. I'm kind of excited for that.
All right. So there we go.
I like this. All right. So with the back half already, my wheels are spinning because there's a certain cutoff that I have for running backs very much in mind right now. So I'll be curious to see how this plays out with the auto picks and how it falls to me.
Yep. Yeah. So we are just on sleeper, and it's just Jake and I in the draft. The rest is CPU auto picking the team. So here we go. Let's get her going.
Woo! Feel like we should have clanked. Oh, look at that. Big surprise that Christian McCaffrey went off the board at 101. Oh, fuck. So
big surprise here. Josh Jacobs went number 5 overall.
I don't understand that at all. I really, truly don't. Boy. Look, it's not that I'm freaked out about who the hell did they just bring in from ages ago that wasn't relevant? Theo Riddick? Yep, they just brought in Theo. Look, I'm not worried about Theo. I'm worried about Josh Jacobs. We've talked about him a lot on this podcast previously, so that's crazy. But it's been a huge running back run to be expected. Only 1 wide receiver pick so far, Michael Thomas.
Shocker, Michael Thomas.
Yeah. CEH, though, Clyde Edwards-Helaire went right after him at 108. So,
which not a big surprise.
I feel like that's appropriate. I think we'll see that climb, maybe just a little bit.
I've heard him going as early as the 1-5 in the first round, so I feel like that's about right.
Yeah, so here's the deal now so this is that cutoff that I was talking about for running backs where I would feel comfortable taking one right now. With some recent injuries that have occurred, I'm a little nervous. So Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, all these guys hypothetically could go around this spot. There was 2 injuries to 2 different offensive linemen in Philly, so that makes me nervous for Miles Sanders right now. Not saying it's going to be a huge decrease for him, but do I want to take on that at this spot? Do I want to obviously Kenyon Drake's dealing with his own issues right now, the walking boot saga. That's still playing out, right? I believe. There's no confirmation on that. So do I go wide receiver here? Because Devontae Adams is there. And he is I think he's my number 1 this year for wide receivers. So it's going to be really hard to pass him up. And you know what? It's our mock draft. We are Packers homers. I'm just going to take him. I'm going to do it.
All right. So Joe Mixon went next, which leaves me at the turn here. So I've got to pick. I got a long time before my next picks here, so I got to think about strategy of who I think could be still there at the end of the third round and into the fourth, and who I'd be comfortable taking at those positions. Uh, I feel like wide receiver, there's so much opportunity for players that can finish in the top 12 this year, where running back, it's hard to find those guys that are basically guaranteed work in the offense and are that overall bell cow. So I think I'm going to take Miles Sanders here with my first pick. Even with everything that you said, I totally agree with you. But his talent, he looked so good,
And he's the only show in town.
Yes. So I'm taking him there, and then I am taking with my next pick my guy that I've got ranked number 3 overall in my projections is Austin Eckler. I am going to take him here at the 2-1, get 2 running backs off the board, and get that short up so I can ignore running back now for quite some time.
So I really hoped that Austin Eckler was going to be available for me here, and that's the risk that you take in this situation. If you do not get your guy, there is zero guarantee that they're going to fall to you. I love that pick, Austin Eckler. He's been creeping up draft boards as he should be. I remember back around Scott Fishbowl time, he wasn't going until the back half of the second. Maybe you could even get him all the way up to the mid of the third, which just seemed outrageous to me.
Oh, that I would smash if that happened to me. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'd seen some folks get away with that, and the jealousy was definitely there for me. So the spot that I'm in now is actually a little bit clearer for me. It was going to be Austin Eckler. I also had the thought of taking a tight end here. Maybe just getting one of those top 3 guys and calling it a day so that I don't have to worry about the position later. It's tough with tight end to get that guaranteed production. It's always tempting when I see Julio Jones sitting there at this spot, because I would love to start a draft with Devontae Adams and Julio Jones.
That is a sexy start,
isn't it? Now you forfeit a lot of flexibility down the road, which is what can be really tricky about that. Now these 2 guys, I could easily see finishing. Either one of them could finish as the number 1 overall easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could be, not by a wide margin, because Michael Thomas is going to be probably number 1 or number 2, let's be honest. Maybe number 3 at worst. So it's, do I get that surety there? Or do I try and piecemeal through another running back that I think could be okay here? And there's no running back where I go, oh, I for sure want you. Nick Chubb for me right now is not even... I'm not locked into him by any means. Talked about this in the past. I'm a little nervous about what could happen there with Nick Chubb. And that concussion, by the way, I want to talk about that just real quick. Had that concussion that took him out of some practices there. This time of year with the new coaching staff, I don't like that kind of news. And maybe I'm too risk averse. But that scares me. So I am actually just going to try and get the surest thing at tight end here with this pick and take Travis Kelce so that I can lock it in, set it and forget it, not have to worry.
Nice. So our first quarterback went off the board here at the 2-7 with Patrick Mahomes. Not a surprise that he was the first one off the board. End of the second, we had Lamar Jackson. Also right in there, George Kittle went at the 3-3. I was really hoping that he would fall down to me here at the end of the third and get really good value, but that obviously did not happen. And Jake, you are back on the clock.
And it's still been a flurry of running backs. I'd say about half the picks were still running backs. So you Chubb, Aaron Jones, James Conner, Bell. Le'Veon Bell, glad he's off the board and I don't have to think about that. Every bit of news I've gotten with Le'Veon Bell, I'm sorry, Dustin, because I know he's your guy. Prior to this week, I was so
yeah. I know.
What really bums me out, though, is that Chris Carson went at 306. That's the guy that I was looking to fall here. And every other iteration of a mock draft I'd done previously, or the rankings that I'd seen, he would have been available to me around this spot. It's unfortunate that he's not because I was so ready to hammer him. But I'll tell you what, I'm coming around to the idea that if I can just get Jonathan Taylor as my running back one, I honestly won't hate it anymore. The camp is looking great. I do think that there's so many dump offs available. That's all they're talking about with Phillip Rivers there. He's going to be the dump off king to running backs. And yes, Nyheim Hines is going to get his. Jonathan Taylor is a capable catching running back. So do I do that or do I load up on another wide receiver? Mike Evans is still there. Allen Robinson, I love. He's probably the only other guy that I'm looking at in this scenario because if I wait, the running back thing, it's slimmed out so much that it feels like I'm going zero RB, even if that's not fitting the exact criteria there. So right now it's a coin flip, honestly. It's Allen Robinson or it's Jonathan Taylor. And I think I'm just going to crush it and go for upside and hit Jonathan Taylor.
Nice. Oh, Allen Robinson went the pick right after you, which is who I was probably going to pick there. I love Allen Robinson, perpetually undervalued. But I got back-to-back picks here again, as I will the entire draft. Thank you very much. Oh boy, I don't know what the decisions here. I think, this is a tough spot here.
Are you looking more for upside here? I'm just curious because you have your two top running backs locked in. Are you looking more for like an upside type of guy, or you just want firm, solid wide receiver production, or what's your favorite idea there?
Well, I'm definitely going wide receiver in one of these two picks, and it obviously doesn't matter which one I take. I know who I'm going to take for a wide receiver in this position. I'm trying to decide on the other pick. So, not to waste too much time here, I will take your guy, Bobby Woods, here as my wide receiver one on my team. And I knew if I went, I knew you would take him just because you've been so high on him. I don't understand how Cooper Kupp is still 2 spots above him. If I was in a draft without you, I would have probably waited to see if he would have fell to me into the 5th round because I think he might have.
Or 5th, yeah.
But I want to make sure I have some guaranteed production, and he's been nothing but health his career, and he's going to get a ton of balls in that offense. If you guys want to know more, go back and listen to the My Guys or our Drinking Buddies episode from last week. You can hear it all there. We spell it out perfectly. I don't need to belabor that point anymore.
So now you've got the choice here. You've got your first wide receiver locked in. Do you try and go? Because there's one tight end that I'm interested in here if I didn't already have one locked in, and that's Zach Ertz for me.
Maybe, I guess, but you know who I'm probably angling for later on here as my late round tight end.
That's
I'm thinking about snagging another running back here. And I think I'm going to take Todd Gurley in this spot. I don't know if he's going to hold up this season, but he's got such great upside. Do I want to take a chance this early? I don't know what to do, Jake.
I was just about to say, for somebody, if you already have 2 running backs locked up at this point, Todd Gurley would be my choice because the upside we've talked about in the past is the running back one. It's a dark horse candidate situation for sure. But that kind of upside exists with Todd Gurley because he's the only game in town. He's on a high-powered offense. If the knee holds up and looks okay, he has so much value here. I personally don't know that I could do it because I only have one running back, and it's the high upside play of Jonathan Taylor. I wouldn't feel maybe quite as secure about it for me. But if you have two set up, I don't hate that at all.
You know what? I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to do it.
Nice. I like that. Mike Evans
You
goes
know,
right after.
you know what they say? You play to win the game.
Who says that?
So,
I want names.
Herm Edwards. He said that
Oh, okay.
when he's coach of the Jets.
You gave me the name.
Am I correct there? You play to win the game.
Playoffs? No, that's a different guy.
No. Yeah.
All right. So
Anyway, so you're on the clock here.
I'm looking at this right now, and I'm in a similar situation of, okay, so I've got one of all the major positions taken care of. I've got Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, and Jonathan Taylor. My gut wants to lock up another running back right here, right now. Now, here's what's interesting is a candidate for this space for just solid production would have been David Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with the recent injury to him, which terrible, and hope the dude is okay. It seems,
it sounds like he avoided major injuries, so that's good.
That's right. Seems much less severe than everybody had initially projected. But obviously, he's out for me. I can't risk somebody missing a few games and coming back from that groin injury. I don't like Melvin Gordon here. I just really don't. David Johnson, I'm growing more lukewarm on by the day because I don't like him to get many targets. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at if I wanted to go with one of my dudes who I think will outperform his ADP quite a bit, it's Mark Ingram. He's somebody that I would look here. At the beginning of the fourth, though, it's not really where I'd want to take him, just for that value to really be full tilt boogie.
Yeah, I considered him for a hot tick there instead of Todd Gurley, but like you said, it ultimately came down to the upside with my RB3 on my team. But he was in consideration there.
Now, there's one guy I didn't get Robert Woods, so I could go for the consolation booby prize of Cooper Kupp, but I don't really want that much either. DK Metcalf is very interesting here, though. I might consider him. But you know who I really like, who's just buried a little bit too far in ADP, and that's going to change, is Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen now has no competition at wide receiver with Mike Williams being out, at least for a bit here. And maybe it's the Hard Knocks thing, but God damn it, I'm going to take Keenan Allen, lock him in as my wide receiver too.
I like that. So then we have a plethora of running backs and wide receivers going off the board here. We got David Johnson, Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Melvin Gordon, David Montgomery, Mark Ingram, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley. Mark Andrews went at the 412 as the third tight end off the board. And then Devin Singletary, DJ Chark, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, Tyler Lockett, which I was hoping he was going to fall to me.
Yep.
Raheem Mostert, Ronald Jones at the 5'8",
hey,
and then T.Y. Hilton.
He's moving up in the rankings and in the world here is Ronald Jones. I finally bit the bullet and I traded for him in a league. I offered a second round pick next year. I got Ronald Jones and a couple of fourths tossed in. It didn't feel good, but the dude
That's not bad though either.
He has a fair amount of upside. He really does. It's situational dependent and it depends on how that offense works. But Zach Ertz going behind Mark Andrews is interesting. I guess
in the middle of the fifth round, I love that value.
If he could,
especially since we were talking about it with my last set of picks at the turn there at the 3-4. The fact that he fell to the middle of the fifth round is just incredible value.
That's exactly right.
And he's just going to produce this season.
I am loving his opportunity share this season. It's going to be stupid the amount of targets that he gets once again. Doesn't matter how many yards he gets, he's going to be the Jarvis Landry of tight ends, and you'll be very happy with him.
Yeah,
so now I'm in a position where, I skipped on running back last round. Obviously, Mark Ingram did not fall to me. I didn't really expect him to, but, you always hold out hope. The options that are there now are guys like Kareem Hunt, which is interesting. DeAndre Swift, it's a little bit less interesting for me. Cam Akers. And I understand, by the way, that it looks like Swift could have a total control of that backfield at this point. We don't really know what's going on with Kerryon Johnson and the brace. But even with that, I don't trust the Lions offense enough that I really want a piece of him at where his ADP is right now. So do I go wide receiver again? Do I push the can? Do I kick the can down the road with running back? That's what I'm looking at right here. Because there's nobody that's jumping off the books to me. Kareem Hunt is really the only guy I'm curious about because there's an outside chance that he produces just as well as Nick Chubb. So I'm in the fifth. I'm in the back of the fifth. I don't believe that he will make it back around, even in the 4 picks it's going to take to get back to me. But there are a couple of wide receivers that I'm eyeing, and I will keep those close to the vest for right now until you make your picks. There's a couple of guys that I'm very interested in for wide receiver. My hope would be one of them makes it back. But there is no running back that I am close to with Kareem Hunt, so I'm going to take him right here.
All right. Dak Prescott went at the 5'11". I'm a little disappointed. I will admit I was thinking about pulling the trigger on Dak here.
Really?
With one of my 2 picks. I have him statted out as my number 2 quarterback on the season right now. So to get him at the 6th round, I was going to be all over that.
He's your number 2. Hold on. We can't gloss over this. He's your number 2. Who is your number 3?
Mahomes.
Oh,
okay. So Lamar, and it's only like a 3-point difference, less than 3 points. It's really close. It's splitting hairs, but technically he is statted out finishing just slightly higher than Mahomes. So I still may consider taking quarterback with one of my 2 picks here. I never go early round quarterback, but again, 6th round. Kyler Murray's on the board. He is my number 4 ranked projected quarterback. So I may pull the trigger on that. I'm set on running backs for a while. I don't have to hit running backs. Tight ends were kind of in now that the top 4 are gone. It's better just to wait because 5 through 20 are all within the same general area here where they could finish in that range, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit. Right. Wide receiver, I got some options. I'll probably pull the trigger on a wide receiver here just because it's a long way back, and I do want to make sure I get a good wide receiver 2 on my team. I'm going to go down a little bit here for someone that I think is going to have a really big season, and that is Michael Gallup. I am taking him here at the end of the 5th.
Interesting.
Yes, I think he's poised to have a really big season this year. And then, as I said, I'm going to take Kyler in the 6th round.
Fair enough. And you did that, of course. Oh, no! There's the guy that I was so excited to get was Cortland Sutton. Went off at 6:02 right before me. Got sniped by my own indecision, but I really didn't believe that Hunt would make it back. So those are the risks that you have to take. Sometimes it's unfortunate. Now, there's still a couple of wide receivers that I'm more lukewarm interested in here. There is one other guy that I think is going to have a big season, and that's Brandon Cooks. I'm starting to think that the concussion thing has just been so overblown, and his ADP will not be allowed to rise because of that. So I would love to take a shot on his upside, which is massive. If he's the number 1 for Deshaun Watson, it's top 12 potential easily.
Is he going to be the number 1 for Watson though?
I don't know. That's the question. Is it him?
I'm slowly warming up on Will Fuller, who I've been off of ever since his rookie season. Like I traded him in a dynasty league his rookie season, or after his rookie season on an orphan I took over, and I've just been off of him. But I recently listened to Edwin's podcast, the injury doc, where he made a compelling case for Will Fuller and having a surprising season this year. So I'm starting to warm up on him. If you guys want to hear more, go listen to his podcast. It's really great. But Jake, this is your pick. Who are you taking?
Hey, I'm all about I'm all about the potential of Will Fuller. It's just the injury concerns that are always there. It's well, how many
Mm-hmm.
good things do I get out of Will Fuller this year? And I think, but obviously we're talking about Edwin Porras, who is literally specializing in injuries. So if he's coming out and saying that, that gives me more confidence. And it also gives me more pause on selecting Brandon Cooks at this point in the draft. Although I still don't think it's a bad call.
No, neither do I. I really like Brandon Cooks. He's another one that's perpetually undervalued every year.
Mm-hmm. Now there's one. Now that I have, this is stupid because I was just on this spot at 5'10", and I said, I don't know that I want DeAndre Swift here, as my second running back. All of a sudden, I'm looking at him as my third running back. It's only been
Different
a
story.
difference of four picks, but all of a sudden now he's the RB3. Look, the potential's still there. It's just I don't really trust that offense. Do I, or do I pull the trigger on my quarterback? Do I go Matt Ryan, who would be, so he's my quarterback 3 for this year. I think I could easily get him on the turn. Now, this may really bite me in the ass.
It could backfire.
Could easily bite me in the ass. So right now for me, it literally is looking like DeAndre Swift versus Brandon Cooks. At this point, the depth at wide receiver is so great. Still, there's so many interesting options. There's just not a lot of interesting potential RB1s for the team. So I am going to somewhat reluctantly take DeAndre Swift.
I actually like that. I am a fan of DeAndre Swift. I think he's going to have a great season this year.
And do you think that he just rises above the offense as we've known it so far?
Well, I think they've been looking for their. Oh, you got sniped with your Matt Ryan pick at 7-9.
I hate everything. I hate everything.
So within that turn of picks, we'll get back to DeAndre Swift in a second.
Yeah.
We had 4 quarterbacks go and 3 tight ends go. So, but yeah, DeAndre Swift. The news with Kerryon Johnson coming out where he's wearing the knee brace, but he says it's more for comfort than any sort of like knee issue. It's more of a comfort issue, which if that makes you feel more comfortable in playing, then by all means. But that whole comment that he made about not wanting to be the workhorse running back or not wanting to carry the load, however he worded it, and Matt Patricia and that team has been looking for their like bell cow running back. And DeAndre Swift can do it all. He can run between the tackles. He can catch the ball. I think he could take a stranglehold on this backfield. So I actually really like that pick.
And I don't like, Kerryon's in the realm of things that Kerryon has said also about like he can't learn anything from him because he does things that he just is not equipped to do. It's like, you're really showing your cards here. So I'm hoping for the best there. Now on the clock, I am so fucking livid that Matt Ryan went one pick before I'm ready to go here. That would have been my smash pick. 0 questions. I would have just spent the remaining clock time using my love for Matt Ryan. Unfortunately, I have to make a decision here. Now, both Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller went in between there, so both those options off the table. I would have liked to have one of them fall here, and I would have taken probably whoever was available. If both were available, it would have been Cooks by a nose, but I would have gladly had Fuller there. Tyler Boyd's really interesting in this spot. That offense, it still concerns me a bit. I've talked especially about Joe Burrow, and I don't necessarily trust the offensive line to get right so quick like everybody's hoping they will. But to have a piece of that offense, that passing offense, in the back of the 7th round, I'm pretty okay with that. And it's a top 2 option there. And there's a chance with A.J. Green's long injury history here that Tyler Boyd could still end up outpacing everybody in targets. So it's that kind of upside where I just have to go, all right, I'm going to go Tyler Boyd.
Oh, and I was secretly hoping you would not take him and you talk yourself out of it because that is one of my guys. I've got him on almost all my dynasty rosters. I love Tyler Boyd. He's just he's not a number one, but he is going to give you consistent number two numbers week in and week out with those spike number one wide receiver weeks.
For sure.
So I really like him. So I'm here back at the turn, got to kind of think ahead a little bit now that we're getting into the meat of the draft here where you have to start putting a little bit more thought in and kind of going after your guys a little bit. So I am going to go with a running back here. I know I smashed running back early, but to get this guy at this spot, I feel like he's got a lot of upside, and the news coming out of camp has been really positive about him. So I'm taking Antonio Gibson here. Like I said, I think he could be the back in that backfield come the season.
Interesting.
And I'm willing to take a shot on him right here. I know there's not a chance on how he would make it back to me at the end of the 9th round. So might as well take him here at this, like I said, at this spot. You're kind of taking your shots on guys you think are going to outproduce their ADP. So back on the clock here at the beginning of the 8th round, looking at the guys that are available, Evan Ingram, Jordan Howard, Jarvis Landry, Phillip Lindsay, Tom Brady, Breida, Deontay Johnson, Tariq Cohen, Debo. A lot of guys that are just kind of, they don't, not a lot of those names. Yeah, they're not exciting. But, one name that caught my eye here that I really like, and we've talked about him before, it's Jarvis Landry.
Yep.
He is just a PPR machine, and to get him in the 8th round feels criminal. I am smashing that all day long, and I am going to take him here 8th round.
I wanted that. Now, Evan Ingram went off the board right after at 8:02. We're going to take a really quick ad break here to let you guys know that today's mock draft episode is brought to you by Kangaroo. Kangaroo was created to ensure that everyone has access to home security. Every product Kangaroo makes starts with 3 questions. Is it simple? Can it be produced at a price that everyone can afford? And is it secure? With Kangaroo, you never pay for unnecessary bells and whistles, and you know your data is going to be secure. The front door security kit is a simple setup. No tools or tech geeks required. If you have Wi-Fi and a smartphone, you can use Kangaroo. Go to heykangaroo.com to learn more and start keeping your home safe today. Be sure to use code RINGDONG, that's RINGDONG, one word, for 20% off any Kangaroo Complete subscription order. So, with that said, I am on the clock here. Jarvis going is a big bummer to me because I did love me some Jarvis. He would have been a real nice wide receiver 4 to have there. Oh, my goodness. Now, I'm kind of back at the path of do I take another running back? Because at this stage, look, my dude flew off the board for quarterback. There's nobody here that I am gaga at. You mentioned it earlier. At this point, there's such a meaty middle for quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather wait and get the last one available out of my group that I feel comfortable with. And there's still enough of those guys left on the board. Enough people have taken a quarterback in this one QB league that I'm not fretting it. So I think I will try and go for a running back. You know, a guy who I'm really coming around on is Zach Moss.
Really?
Zach Moss, yep, rookie in the Buffalo backfield. Devin Singletary's news blurbs in training camp are bad. Right now, look, I don't want to overstate how much you should pay attention to this stuff because everything coming out of camp is always so positive and it's tough to get your head around it. But when you hear negative stuff coming out of camp from a team about a player, you have to pay attention to that.
You have to.
It doesn't happen that often because everything is roses typically. So Devin, I almost called him Devin Fumbletary, but that's the news word is he's fumbling everything out. I already thought Zach Moss had equal claim to that backfield because nothing against Devin Singletary. I just don't think he's, a superb talent.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, There are guys available. So there's Philip Lindsay, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, both of the Miami guys back there. There's also Tariq Cohen. And with the David Montgomery news, some people might be tempted there. I think Cohen's workload stays the same, by the way. I don't think he really gets a big uptick with that injury.
Me either.
I think he's still going to be very good, and we have a bet specifically about that. Don't get me wrong. But he does not have that RB1 feel to a team. Zach Moss, there's a shot, man. Maybe it's the ball blast ladies getting in my head because they're so keeping their love for him. But he's not making it back. There's no wide receiver that I'm so smitten with here that I just have to take him. So I'm going Zach Moss at 803. Oh, nice. And the Miami guys went off the board right after. Both Jordan Howard and Matt Breida back to back.
Yep, back to back. Ooh, the one wide receiver I was hoping was going to fall to me. Marvin Jones, I was hoping was going to come around. I was going to grab him with my next pick, so that's disappointing. We had 4 more quarterbacks off the board. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers finally went off the board at the 8-9, which, he has fallen. And Josh Allen and Carson Wentz went in the 9-6.
Big.
Oh, if I hadn't taken Kyler a couple rounds earlier, I might have considered taking Carson Wentz. I really like him a lot. He's done nothing but produce in the league. So
I really liked him before those 2 linemen went down. He's the guy now that I'm so probably overly cautious about with that recent news, but it's and I'm sure he's still going to be good. He's just not going to be where I had ranked him to be coming into the season. And I had him at QB7 on my early rankings. He was moving down a little bit just because of the health of some of the other guys was still a concern. I would have been happy to have him right here, though. I would have loved to have him right here.
Absolutely.
But that's what you get when you play this game of, I don't want to take a guy too early. This is the trap that you can easily fall in. And so that's what's happened to me. But thankfully, Dustin, there is a guy on this board that I'm still very pleased is available at the quarterback position, that I'm not batting an eye at it. And I'm going to go ahead and scoop him up now because, yes, everybody does have a quarterback. I think every team except one has a quarterback right now. Oh, wait, no, every team has a quarterback. So this, besides me, so this actually makes it interesting.
So are you going to play the game where second quarterbacks are going to start flying off the board here? Or
the question is, when do those second quarterbacks start going? So if we're talking about like our home league, everybody would have had a second quarterback by now. That's the kind of league that we play in for our home league.
Except for you and me. We'd still be drafting our first.
That's right. Last year in our home league, I waited, and just a little pat on the back, I took Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen back-to-back in the 10th and 11th rounds because I was the wait on court. We both were. We both just waited.
Humble brag.
It wasn't even that humble, let's be honest. That was just outright brag.
No, but that was a very good pickup late in the draft. And it just shows that good quarterbacks can be found super late in the draft.
That's right. Now, there is still one guy on the board for wide receivers that I'm so interested in here, and he's not a sexy name. So the hope would be that he might fall, but based on his ADP, I don't think that he will. And I'd even be nervous about him getting taken in these next 4 picks. There's a PPR monster still left on the board that is not Jarvis Landry.
I know who it is, but I'm not going to take him. I'm not going to snipe you, don't worry.
But will this other auto person take him? Now, you got Landry in the last round. You don't need to double up on that. I'd be interested in doing it here. His name is Jamison Crowder. Again, the reports out of camp, there's just nobody there. And
there's no one there.
I'm sorry for Denzel Mims, rookie believers. He is really chancy coming out of there. It's basically going to be the Crowder and
Herndon show.
Do you think even Herndon?
I do. I think he's going to have a bounce back season.
Okay. There's also McCole Hardman on the board here. He's interesting. Darius Slayton are all interesting guys. I'm going to roll the dice for the purposes of this exercise, and because there's a couple of guys on the board I'm still okay with at quarterback, I'm just going to take Jamison Crowder.
Let's be honest. That's what you'd normally do anyway in a draft.
Right.
If it was our home league, you'd be waiting another round or two at least.
It would be tough. But I would probably make that decision, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's see here. I gotta find out where can I see where. I want to know how many tight ends have been taken here. Wow, I'm confident tight end will still be there for me late round. There's a lot of late round guys I think could have big seasons this year, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to take a tight
You're
end
not
here
you're not
this
going for your
turn.
guy here.
Not yet. I think it's early.
Okay.
I can get him later.
Okay.
When you look at the tight ends that are still available, he's like 6 down on the list. I'm fairly confident that 6 tight ends won't go between my next set of picks. We'll see.
Sure.
But like I said, there's other guys there that I really like this season too. So, if I miss out on my guy, it'll be disappointing. But that's a chance I'm willing to take here. Only because there is a running back that I really like, and then a wide receiver that I'm very high on that I want to take with these next 2 picks. Okay. So first, I'm going to take my running back here. I'm going to select Damian Harris. I don't trust Sony Michel. As I don't know if you guys saw this on the board, but Damian Harris was 1 spot above Sony Michel in the ADP. So he's obviously moving up draft boards. And it makes sense that they're right next to each other currently in ADP because Sony's been out. He was on the PUP. Is he taken off the PUP?
He's off the PUP now. So he is back and supposedly going to be ready. I would still be nervous about him too.
Exactly. He's been banged up and injured, ever since he entered the league. Damian Harris, for whatever reason, maybe the playbook was too much to learn. Maybe he couldn't pick up pass pro. Who knows what it is? Maybe Brady just didn't like the kid. But Damian Harris, he's been showing out in camp so far from reports, and he's getting the opportunity right now with the number ones, which you really like to see. And I think he could be someone that gets the bulk of the carries in that backfield. So I'm willing to take him here at the end of the 9th round.
I like that.
And then coming back to wide receiver, someone I am super high on for this season is Jalen Reagor, who I'm going to take here for Philadelphia. I mean, just with all the other receiving options that are going down in Philadelphia, no one can seem to stay healthy there. Carson Wentz has to throw the ball to someone. Jalen Reagor has speed. He can get down the field. He's learning all the wide receiver positions according to the coaches. So I will take my chance on him here in the 10th round with a lot of upside.
I like that. I do like that pick a lot. And we talk all the time, we're a team, or I'm especially team anti-rookie wide receiver, but it's just...
I am typically too, but I just, with the reports and the situation in Philly, like I said, the wide receivers cannot seem to stay healthy, or anyone on that offense for that fact. So right. I just like the opportunity that presents itself there.
That's exactly right. Darius Slayton went right after that, which is really interesting because Slayton would be a guy that I'd be interested in, but I'd also be interested in Sterling Shepard around this point of the draft, by the way. I know that a lot of folks have seemed like you're throwing a pick away on Sterling Shepard. I don't believe that. I actually think that the guy kind of gets short shrift and he's just not talked about at all. Maybe he's the new Jarvis Landry. He's just not going to get his due. But the guy could be the number 1 target there, and very reasonably so.
Yeah, and I think, too, people are scared off. One, he's got a little bit of an injury history, being dinged up. But then, 2, with the concussions last year, I think that's really pushed him down draft boards, and people are worried about him. But at this spot, I would not hesitate taking him. I think the value is really good because he could be the legitimate number 1 in that offense.
Agreed. And there's a couple of other guys that I'm somewhat interested in here, purely based on upside. Mecole Hardman would be one, although I don't think his upside is as great as some people think it is, even if Tyreek or whatever were to miss for some reason. Christian Kirk is really, really interesting here. Obviously, look, I know how many guys are in Arizona's wide receiving core that any one of them could notch 100 targets. But the reports are great. Christian Kirk has now solidified himself in that offense. He could be a guy in the 10th round where he blows up his ADP. Now, so could, hypothetically, again, I already talked about Sterling Shepard, but another guy that I would like to reach for here, because I don't think he'll make it back, is Preston Williams. This, even for me, though, I do think it would be too much of a reach, and I'm not going to play the game anymore. I'm going to get my guy at quarterback. I want, at the end of this tier, I missed out on Wentz. I'm not going to miss out on Matt Stafford. I know that you're a little more skeptical than I am. I think just looking at what he did last year and looking at the guys that he still has in place, the offense that he still has in place, the coaches he still has in place, I'm so comfortable with Stafford putting up respectable to great numbers every week that I want him.
I don't hate that pick, especially in the 10th round. I do like Stafford. I love his weapons. Obviously, I'm really high on Galladay. Marvin Jones, I love Marvin Jones.
Right.
One of my guys or my drinking buddies for this year. So I love him. TJ Hawkinson, you got DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson. I mean, there's so many weapons there. And he balled out the first half of the season last year, so I don't hate that at all. So here's where the draft really starts to get interesting. In that time we were talking here, we had 3 defenses go off the board, with San Francisco going right after your pick of Matthew Stafford at the 10-4. So, wow. Wow is right. So interesting, but that wouldn't be out of the question in any sort of your home league redraft.
But
anyway,
then the Ravens and the Steelers went after them. Now that's more interesting to me because I expected fully the Patriots to still be enough up here.
I don't know. They've had a lot of guys that have opted out this year, though. So they've had 5 guys on their defense. So
that's fair.
But I would have expected maybe like Kansas City, since their defense came on so hot, at the end of last season. I don't know. To see 3 in the span of 6 round is crazy. So you're back on the board here. Had another couple tight ends. Cam Newton went off the board.
Who are you looking at here? Gone. So Christian Kirk and Mecole Hardman both went. They didn't make it back to me. So that's unfortunate that they didn't. Now, one guy who did make it back and was very close to Matt Stafford in my rankings was actually Daniel Jones. I for sure knew, or I believed that both of them would not make it back. I did have Stafford above Jones, but honestly, I would have been comfortable with him too at this spot. So maybe there's a lesson in there, maybe not, because it's still so much of chance. Now, here's what's interesting is that Preston Williams is still available. So at this point, I could easily go him. I actually don't hate Bryce Love around this area. I know you got Antonio Gibson back in the back of the 7th. And while I do certainly think that he has the best chance of leading that backfield, because, fuck you, Adrian Peterson, for fantasy football. But Bryce Love could get enough of a snap share. Maybe he becomes the new Chris Thompson-esque person there. Obviously, it's different coaching and all that, I understand. But it's interesting. Sterling Shepard also still there. So I think for me right now, it's just a matter of which wide receiver I want to go with. I think Preston Williams, boy, they both actually do have tremendous upside here. It's definitely going to be a wide receiver. But I do think I'm going to take the Sterling Shepard with that solid look at production.
Well, and the fact that you considered him a round earlier, I thought that was a pretty easy pick for you there, taking Sterling Shepard. If you would have passed on him, I probably would have taken him, to be honest.
Fair.
I think that's really good value. And as we talked about previously, a couple minutes ago, he could be the legitimate number 1 in that offense. So the fact that you can get the number 1 weapon, I shouldn't say weapon, number 1 wide receiver in the offense, Because let's be honest, Saquon's going to be the number one weapon in that offense. But to get that guy in the 11th round is really, really good value.
Now, I'm curious about what you're going to do here with these two picks. I think I have to know what one of them is going to be. Right? This has to be the spot that you're considering your tight end, or am I crazy?
You're crazy. I don't think I'm going to take him here.
Oh, my God.
Only because I'm looking at the running backs, and I would really like one more running back.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at what's available and knowing that I have a very long way to go until I come back to that, I'm going to take one running back here for sure.
Okay.
And then I want to take Preston Williams here too. I don't think he'll make it back to me. I really like him.
I'll tell you that right now. He will not.
So I really like him. I love his upside. Everything out of camp has been very positive so far. Yeah. So I think I'm going to take Preston Williams here and then come back with a running back and then hope my guy makes it back to me at the end of the 13th round at tight end and then finally pull the trigger on there.
It's going to get interesting.
It is. But this is honestly what I would do if I was sitting in my draft right now, only because I don't think he's going to get taken. If I really thought he was going to get taken, I would pull the trigger. But I'm going to take Nyheim Hines here as my running back. I think he could be the receiving option in that backfield for Indianapolis this season. And I love it's PPR. I mean, you got to go with the points and the fact that he could, catch 10 balls a game, according to the coach. I love that sort of upside here in the 12th round.
For sure. I love it. The only reason I did not take him in place of Sterling Shepard is because I already have Jonathan Taylor on my team.
Right.
I am not a fan of locking up multiple pieces in a backfield.
No, especially for someone that could be just the receiving option, the third down back. Yeah. It'd be different maybe if it was like a Zeke and Tony Pollard, where it's like he is like the number 2 that would step in. Like Nyheim Hines will not get the first and second down role. That's going to go to Marlon Mack if something were to happen to Jonathan Taylor. So I agree with you there 100%.
So now at this point, I think my best bet is going to be to take a running back because there's so few left on this big of a turnaround where I'm waiting this many picks. It's too risky. Now, there's still Bryce Love there, who I really do think that the guy has a lot of opportunity. I also don't hate the upside pick of Jerick McKinnon in a spot like this. We're in the 12th round. Mm-hmm. The reports are great about him. There's the wide receiving options are going down like flies in that offense. So is it crazy to think that Jerick McKinnon could get a lot more passing work? No, I think that's a respectable thought, and I think that I'm going to have to go for that kind of upside.
Well, and the reports out of camp are he's looking really good, coming back strong after, essentially missing football for 2 years here. It sounds like he's really, looking hungry and in shape and ready to just rip up camp this year. So
it's the injury concern still lingering, of course.
Obviously.
You always wonder, but it's upside, baby. At this point, it's just upside. So I do think his upside is much greater than Bryce Love's. So that's why I did pick him here.
Yeah, and he could be the number 1 running back in that offense in reality. Like, I know it's going to be kind of like a 4-headed monster there, but he could end up being the number 1 option. So here we are in the 13th round. Finally had our first kickers off the board. 2 of them went here in the 13th. Only 2 tight ends went, so my tight end of choice is still hanging out there.
Only got 1 pick essentially left to wait this thing out. Because I'm not going to take. I will.
You're not going to snipe it.
No. That would be rude. It would be funny. It'll be funny, but it would be rude. So I'm not going to do that for you. Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Ben Roethlisberger, those quarterbacks came off at this range. I'm not going to lie, though. If I could get these guys, if I knew I could get these guys this late in a draft, I'd feel comfortable waiting on Maybe not Baker still. I'm not totally sold on him this year. Ben, it seems to be
Mm-hmm.
healthy. And if Ben Roethlisberger is healthy, he's going to be dynamite this
Oh,
year. That's really
absolutely.
the only concern. So as I'm looking at it now, though, I have 4 picks left. We both do. So I have 2 that I have to relegate towards the kicker and defense. So what do I want to do with these last couple of spots? I'm not going to take a backup at the onesies. I'm not going to take a backup quarterback. I'm not going
And
to
I
take
was I was going to ask you that. Are you going to do that? I know typically in our home league we have some different rules where in a normal season it may be different this year with COVID, but in a normal season we only get 10 waiver wire transactions for the
right.
entire season. So typically teams will have like a third quarterback at this spot.
Yep.
And usually we are good about taking 2 quarterbacks for the most part, usually have a backup tight end, although that's a little debatable. But I was going to ask you that if you were going to follow suit here in this mock draft or if you're going to do it like a typical open, no restrictions on waiver wire pickups.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the typical. I don't want to cut ourselves off the knees here because that's such an
Mm-hmm.
unusual rule.
Mm-hmm.
One that our commissioner is very, very fond of, and locked in too. But I don't want to lock that in for this draft just because I want this to be a little bit more multi-purpose here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am going to skip on those and presume that we have free reign of the waiver wire after all this is said and done. Now, we've talked again ad nauseum about how rookie wide receivers are not my deal. But when we're talking about the very back half of this draft, with one of the last spots, if you get enough camp hype and if there is enough opportunity available for you, like enough targets available for you, I'll consider you here. And this is where I'm looking at Bryan Edwards for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has been glowing coming out of camp. The opportunity seems incredible. Already Tyrell Williams went down, unfortunate, but there's just not a ton of options there. And I'm going to bite on the rookie hype for once. I owe it to myself, I think, to do it. So I'm going to go with Bryan Edwards here as another wide receiver.
Well, and this late in the draft, it's not someone that you're planning on starting. So you have the luxury, hopefully, there's no injury or COVID or anything, and he can sit on your bench for half the season, get acclimated to the NFL, and then that's typically when we see rookie wide receivers take off is that second half of the season. Something seems to click where all of a sudden the game slows down for them. They learn the playbook better. They get that rapport with the quarterback, what have you. So I like that. He is someone I really like. I think he could be a star in this league. And I really like that pick this late in the draft. Good news for me, my tight end is still here. So I will take him here at the end of the 13th round. I won't mess around anymore. If you guys don't know, shame on you. I've only been talking about the entire offseason here. It's Jonnu Smith, taking him here. And then I'm going to come back and take another guy I think has great PPR upside. And to get him in the 14th round here is crazy and criminal. It's Paris Campbell, kind of the forgotten guy in Indianapolis, because T.Y. Hilton's the established veteran. Michael Pittman Jr., he's the rookie, the downfield threat. But with Phillip Rivers now in the helm there in Indianapolis, he's kind of a check down guy. And Paris Campbell, he does those underneath routes. So I think he could be a PPR machine this season.
I love that. And honestly, let this be a lesson that you can't judge based on your platform's ADP and get tunnel vision towards that immediate group that's coming, especially at this far back into a draft. I'm not doing this draft with my tiers that I would typically be doing for a real draft. So that's shame on me for overlooking him because I think that's a great pick. I would have taken him over Bryan Edwards there. So I think you smashed it. And of course, I love that you got your guy there. Now I'm looking at this draft board. There is not a running back that I'm interested in actually drafting at this point. if this was truly your team situation where there's 16 spots, 2 of them taken up by a kicker and defense, I'm going to use that waiver wire throughout the season to get those running backs. Now, there are a couple of wide receivers that I'm really, really interested in here, so it's just going to be kind of a coin flip for me.
Is it Robbie Anderson? He's still
available.
It
is not Robbie Anderson. I will not be lulled in by Robbie this year. I promised myself. But John Brown is very interesting to me in Buffalo.
No, I think that or his counterpart there, Cole Beasley, is still available, which either one of them I would love to take at this point in the draft.
It's a floor versus upside play. And that's what you have to evaluate your own roster and decide what kind of guy you need. Now, looking at my roster, I went a little safer with wide receivers. I really did. Keenan Allen, target volume. Yes, he has high upside, but kind of still a target play. My bench guys, though, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard, even Bryan Edwards, really. These guys, I don't think their ceiling is so great. So I'm going to pass on guys like Larry Fitzgerald, who's still on the board. But if you went high upside, he's a guy that I would be fully comfortable nabbing here. Same with Hunter Renfrow for similar types of reasons, or Cole Beasley, me or Randall Cobb even right now because we don't.
Yeah, I think he'd be a really good pick right now
for sure. I don't know what the situation is in Houston. We just talked about it, so Randall Cobb could end up with a whole mess of targets. I am going to go for more of the high upside guy here. For me, that comes down to John Brown, James Washington. I love both of them. I love both of their ceilings. We talked about Ben Roethlisberger, and if he's healthy, that could mean really good things for James Washington. I don't believe that Deontay Johnson is locked in as the number 2 there. I think, by all accounts, that's what we expect, but I think there's a good shot that James Washington becomes that guy, and then look out. So it's John Brown versus James Washington for me right now. I am going to lean John Brown just because I think the odds are greater with Stephon Diggs being new to the offense, coming over. I think it's great. And we know Josh Allen's love affair with throwing down the field. If he increases that accuracy, I like John Brown, so I nab him here.
Absolutely. All right. Back on the board, Jake. Both of us, kicker, defense, left the draft. Folks, if you are taking a kicker or a defense before your last 2 picks, you're doing redraft the wrong way. Even in Dynasty, let's be honest. There's no reason to take them.
Dynasty.
You can pick these guys up and play the waiver wire all season long. There's no reason to be taking these and losing out on value for your other positions that are much more valuable throughout the season. So, we both waited to the last 2 picks of the draft for us to take our kicker and defense. So, Jake, how are you going to end this here?
Look, this is where I win the league right here is with this pick. And it's interesting because you actually mentioned them, and I know you think I'm getting a little bit, but I actually do like that the Kansas City Chiefs are hanging out here for a defense. Look, they're going to be so high. I don't typically like to do, just to give a little bit of analysis, I don't usually like to do the opposite side of a really high-powered offense because that does scare me because that means that typically offenses are going to be scoring more against that defense then. But I actually really like the Chiefs' outlook this year. I like a little bit of consistency that's been there. I have them as a top 10 defense because, yes, I did rank defenses. So, fuck it. I'm going Chiefs.
Nice. And I'm just going to not put a lot of thought into this. I'm going to take the Rams for the defense. I think they are going to have a solid defense. Nothing great, but they've got some really good pieces there, and if they all come together, they could be a really, really strong group. And then with kicker for my final pick here, it's a kicker. You can stream them. Let's be honest. No one's really standing out
come
here.
on now. People tune in for this kind of analysis.
All right. I'm going to take this guy just for the nickname we have. I'm taking Matt Prater. I'm taking the Prater Tot. He is my kicker.
There you go. That's how you make
That's the hardcore analysis here.
You know what kicker I'm not going to take? Minnesota.
Because he always goes left.
I don't trust Minnesota to save my life. So I'm going to pass on him. I'll also pass on a Seahawks kicker. Sorry to both of those fan groups, I guess, if you're holding on to
Hashtag not sorry.
Not really. So you know what I'm going to do? This is going to be my big homer pick.
Your homer pick?
I started with a homer pick. I'm ending with a homer pick. It's Mason Crosby for those bookends.
That is such a great bookend right there. Oh, I love it.
High scoring offense, maybe, but they'll get a lot of field goals.
So, all right. So
last pick in the draft. Can we talk about the mystery relevant here of Samuel?
Interesting pick.
I like it.
I don't hate it at all.
There, man.
All right. So, Jake, do you want to run down your roster here for the folks? Give a little recap.
Absolutely. So a quick recap of where I ended up here. I started off with Devontae Adams, then secured up tight end with Travis Kelce. Jonathan Taylor is my RB1. Then went Keenan Allen, Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Tyler Boyd, Zach Moss, Jameson Crowder for that target security. Finally took a quarterback in round 10 with Matt Stafford because I love his offense and upside. Sterling Shepard, Jerick McKinnon, Brian Edwards, John Brown for some more upside. Then I went the Chiefs and Mason Crosby for the end.
All right, and I've got Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler, Bobby Woods, Todd Gurley, Michael Gallup, Kyler Murray, Antonio Gibson, Jarvis Landry, Damian Harris, Jalen Reagor, Preston Williams, Naheem Hines, my boy Jonnu Smith, Paris Campbell, the Rams, and the Prater Tot as my kicker. So, folks, we will be putting this out onto Twitter. Check out our Twitter page at Drinking Fantasy. We will have this here. We will put out a poll for you guys to comment and tell us who do you think won this draft between the two of us. And we will discuss it on our next episode. We'll do a little recap for you. And one of us will be able to gloat and rub it in the other's face here. So we look forward to that next week.
Can I ask you one quick question?
Yes. I believe that I won this draft.
You son of a bitch. I'm just very curious, though. Looking at your roster right now, are you very comfortable with it if this were to be your real-life roster? Is there anything that you regret about this that you wish, oh, shit, I wish I could have changed that pick?
Not really. I actually really like my roster. The only picks that maybe were a little questionable is the Todd Gurley pick in the fourth round. That's the only questionable one.
You played the board, though.
Yes, but I'm really solid with my first two running backs, and we only have to start two. So the fact that he's my third and could be a weekly starter. But other than that, I really like how the draft played out for me. What about you?
I'm a little nervous about my running back situation if this were to be my true deal because, even though you only start two, Jonathan Taylor and Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Swift, there's a lot of question marks there. Zach Moss, Jerick McKinnon, a lot of question marks at running back. So
yeah, you went very rookie heavy for your running backs.
I do. It's the only place that I'll go rookie heavy is running backs. To be fair, those are the ones who can step in and give you that production. But it's a little nerve-wracking with the running backs there. Otherwise, I love the rest of my team. It's just a matter of maybe in those first couple of rounds, I might have passed on Adams or Kelce to get a running back.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think this went great. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel like I just gave birth.
Oh.
All right, then. Split open. A little hungry, I guess.
Well, you should go take care of that. We will wrap up this episode here since we're going a little bit longer than normal. But as I mentioned before, you can find the handle at Drinking Fantasy for the podcast Twitter handle, where we will have the rosters out there for you to vote on. And you can find me at FF Dusty Dog on Twitter.
And you can find me at Jake Trowbridge.
And Till next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.